We've been enjoying sunny daytime flights in Aerosoft's CRJ700. Let's see how it performs in the night. Fly along with me in LatinVFR's Payware, New Orleans Louis Armstrong International, to Asobo's handcrafted Orlando International. Let's climb into the flight deck and get started. The night lighting at this airport is superb and should look great for our departure. Alright, we'll start by getting the iPad turned on. Up to the overhead, get the battery turned on. Next we'll do our fire test. Head down to the panel, the indicators flash and the message appears on the ECAS. We'll bring up the DC electrical page. There we go. Verify that we have enough voltage to start the APU. And that looks good. Go back to the status page. Now we'll hit APU fuel. We'll make sure the APU door is opened and APU invite is cleared. It is. And now we can start the APU. That's going to take a while to spool up. While it does, we'll do the flight brief. So we have a 510 nautical mile flight from Mike Sierra Yankee, Louis Armstrong International, to Mike Charlie Oscar, Orlando International. There are no SIDS out of New Orleans, so we are getting radar vectored direct to our first fix, which is FATSO. Then we join Quebec 105 until Redfin. Then we get on to Quebec 100. Quebec 100 turns at Remus, and then we get off at Charge. From Charge, we join the pricey 1 star to Orlando. So I'll bring up the star overlay. So this is the Charge transition to Bulks. From Bulks, we head to RHIP. And from RHIP, we're being brought in parallel to runway 17 right. We'll get radar vectors to our initial approach fix, Ratoy. Now you can see in the illustration here, it looks like a pretty severe turn, but I'm sure ATC will have us square that off. And then from Ratoy, we've got an interesting ILS for runway 17 right. If I move down to the bottom here, you can see it's a series of step downs starting at 6,000 and decreasing at 1,000 with each waypoint. And we intercept the ILS very low at 1,600 feet at Minco. Our decision height is 290 feet for this. Now if I back out of this chart, we can bring up the taxi diagram for Orlando to know what to expect. So we are coming in on runway 17 right, and we want to get to airside 4, which is the Delta terminal on the north side. So I'm expecting that we'll exit on the right and taxi back via Gulf, turning at Hotel 3 on the left to get to airside 4. Alright, our APU is started up, so we've got power for the aircraft. Let's get down here and we'll turn both of the IRSs to nav. Next, we'll take a minute and get all of the lights turned on, so we'll turn up the integrated lights here on the pedestal, the floods, turn over here, and get the integrated lights on the console, and on the co-pilot's console. Now I'll head overhead, get the integrated lights up here. And then there are 2 overhead lights, so we'll turn those on to help us out. Now that we can see, we can turn off our headlamp. Next, we'll get our nav and logo lights on, since it's nighttime. And then we're going to test our hydraulics. So we're going to turn on the first, third, and fourth hydraulic switch by flicking those up. Next, we'll bring up the hydraulics page. and verify we've got pressure. That looks good. Now we're going to turn those all into auto mode and turn the second switch on. Back to the hydraulics page. We'll verify we have pressure in the center, and then we'll flip that one back off. Now I'll turn on our air conditioning, our cargo air conditioning, our window heat, and we'll get the no smoking seatbelt signs on and the emergency lights armed. Head down to the MCP, do our stall test by pressing the stall warning button. That'll also shake the yoke. Over here we'll press the green button for the cockpit voice recorder test, wait for the light to illuminate. Next we'll get all of our doors opened and get ready to start boarding our passengers. We'll check our oxygen mask, that's good. We'll check the cockpit door camera. That smiling guy was Aerosoft's Mathis, in case you're wondering. We need the parking brake off for the next test, so we'll go up and flip the anti-skid switch off, listen for the alarm, then we'll flip the gear overheat. Switches up, listen for those. We'll toggle the lamps on and off to make sure they're all illuminated, and then turn on the thrust reversers. Now we'll press TCAS and TCAS test. While we're waiting for that, we'll get on the pitch trim and the yaw dampers. We'll get the initial setup of the MCDU, so we'll put in our departure airport. Then we'll go to the second page and snag the GPS coordinates, copy them to the scratch pad, back to the first page, paste them into set position, and hit execute. Now we'll go and put our departure airport again and destination airport. And then we'll enter our flight number. We are Delta 3556. New Orleans clearance, Delta 3556 IFR to Orlando with Foxtrot, ready to copy. Cleared to Orlando, radar vectors FATSO, Quebec 105, then as filed. Climb and maintain 4000, expect filed 10 minutes after departure. Departure 125.5, squawk 3414, Delta 3556. Okay, since we've already briefed the flight, I won't take you through all the details of programming the MCDU, but it's pretty easy. You can watch some of my other videos if you'd like a deep dive into it. But essentially we're going to program in our departure first, which is very easy. It's just a runway since we're not flying a SID. Then we'll head to the flight plan page and we'll put our airways on the left and our waypoints on the right. And then we'll program our arrival. Now in reality, we wouldn't program in the arrival until the arrival was issued to us, which would happen when we contacted approach in flight. But we're going to program it in here. We're not playing with the live ATC today, although we are listening to liveatc.net, so you'll be listening to the actual ATC that's going on at New Orleans and Orlando when I arrive. For today's flight, we're running with AIG Traffic. AIG Traffic is freeware and it's terrific. It inserts real-world airline schedules, liveries, and models into Microsoft Flight Simulator. So you'll see Delta aircraft parked at the Delta terminal. You'll see the right aircraft taking off from the correct terminals, taxiing, flying. It just brings the entire airport alive. And I think it's going to look fantastic at night. I will say that initially programming the MCDU was pretty intimidating. I'd watched a bunch of other YouTubers do it and it was always a bit of a mystery to me. But once you do it once and know the order to put things in, it's kind of fun.
American 2257. Orlando, American 2257 is with you, 6 miles, runway 2. American 27 on time, runway 2.
Alright, we're just finishing up here with our arrival. And then once we do that, we're going to go to the legs page and just toggle through each step and make sure it looks correct. We'll also look for any discontinuities here. These usually occur at transitions, such as between your SID and the en route portion, or the en route portion and the start. So when you find those, you just copy and paste over them to match up the two endpoints. We'll put in flight level 320 on the Perfinite screen, and then we'll import our performance settings from the iPad over here. We'll dial in our initial heading and altitude restriction on the MCP. Alright, I think we've got our last passenger on board, so we'll get ready to close everything up.
Crew, welcome aboard this flight. We hope you enjoy flying with us. Before takeoff, we would like to encourage all passengers to watch our cabin crew display the safety features of the aircraft.
We'll get on our boost pumps, our hydraulic pump, and our beacon in preparation for pushback.
This is ground. Stand by.
This is the freeware toolbar pushback plugin, which is fantastic.
Okay, sir. The bypass pin is installed. All doors and hatches closed and all ground equipment is removed. Standing by for pushback.
We are cleared for start and push.
Okay, cleared for push start.
Parking brakes are released.
Commencing pushback. You can start the engines in sequence.
It will start in the sequence.
We'll start our chronometer to record when the engine start occurs. Head overhead and press engine number 2 start. Now we're going to monitor N2 for 20%. Once it gets there, then we're going to flip up the red tab on the throttle for engine 2 and bring it up to idle. I'm steering the pushback with my rudder control, which is so much easier.
The procedures of the aircraft in case of an emergency.
Parking brake set.
Please remain in your seat.
Ground. You may disconnect.
Okay, sir. Cleared to disconnect. Pin has been
Let's start engine 1.
you at the side. Have a good flight.
The flight attendant safety briefing that you hear is part of this payware aircraft, so it does all of the announcements at the right parts of the flight, which is awesome.
Located here and here. In case of an extreme emergency landing, you will be instructed to get into the brace position, which is executed by placing your head between your knees with your hands over your head. We would also like to remind you that you should turn off all electronic devices. We thank you for paying attention during this brief presentation.
There we go, all the cautions have cleared off of the ECAS, and both of our engines are started. Now we'll get our flaps to take off, which is flaps 8. Get our nose wheel steering armed. We no longer need the APU, so we can turn that off. We'll turn on our recog light, which is our taxi light. Next, we'll bring up the flight controls page and do a flight controls test. Alright, I'll bring up our taxi diagram as we call for taxi. New Orleans ground, Delta 3556, ready to taxi with information Foxtrot. Taxi runway 2 via Golf, Sierra, Whiskey, hold short, runway 29er, Delta 3556. Look left, and we are clear. Look right. Clear. Clear straight ahead, and we are good to go. LatinVFR always does a great job on payware airports. I have KSAN, San Francisco, by him as well. And New Orleans looks fantastic, both during the day and at nighttime. I especially appreciate airports that have good nighttime lighting because, boy, it really adds to it. You can see through the windows there some of the interior of the airport, which is a really nice touch. We've got someone coming in for landing here. So this is really courtesy of AIG Traffic. All of this traffic around here is the airport coming alive with AIG's traffic manager. Coming up on runway 2, and once again that cabin announcement was built in and automatic from the payware aircraft.
Maintain VFR and altimeter 3012 for 4 Echo Sierra.
Alright, we'll go and get our crossflow into manual, turn on our landing lights. We can turn off these overhead lights now, those will just be a distraction. Get our flight director on and ourselves into takeoff mode. New Orleans Tower, Delta 3556, holding short, runway 2. Cleared for departure, runway 2, Delta 3556.
Approach 458, I'm showing a light modification now, extending out to about 4 mile final for runway 36 at Hammond. Okay. American 1781 taxi with Judith.
Alright, at this point I realized I hadn't turned on replay mode, which I wanted to use to get some nice cinematics of my takeoff. So I'm going to pause here for a second and turn it on. However, spoiler, when I got to the end of the flight, I discovered that I did something wrong and it didn't record. So, sorry, no replay mode for this flight. Sooner or later I'll figure it out. It worked the last time. Sometimes it seems to just turn itself off mid-flight for no reason.
43. Once Spirit taxi southbound Sierra, you can make the right turn on Golf and just hold by the southern tip of the Charlie terminal.
And rotate and we're up. I've gotten a little more comfortable with just relying on the flight director to get my pitch right on departure. Now the real trick for the CRJ here is managing your speeds, and there's a lot that happens very quickly. So you've got to get start bringing the flaps in. Once you hit at least 600 feet, then you can turn on the autopilot. But you've got to get your speeds, and you can see mine's already crawling up under control. So I'm going to flip this into manual mode here and bring the throttle back. There we go. So ideally what should have happened there is I should have been able to put it into climb mode and then have my speed all set up to climb at that speed, but I was already above that, so I needed to go manual. Alright, we're looking good. Let's sit back and enjoy that awesome flight simulator scenery. that was a cool nighttime flight. I had some trouble with the ILS. It did intercept the localizer, but then it lost it, and it never intercepted the glide slope. So I ended up flying it manually for a visual landing, and it came in a little bit high, but managed to put it down nice and gently. I have to say I'm still impressed that MCO is a default airport for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So if you haven't flown out of it, be sure to check it out. They did a really nice job on it. And LatinVFR, as always, did a fantastic job on New Orleans. So if you enjoy content like this, be sure to click that like button, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, as always, for flying along with me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.